Hello everybody, Caden here today with another episode of our Prehistoric Fauna Zoo series, and today, as you've seen probably from the title slash thumbnail, whatever, wherever the name is, we are building the exhibits for the, is it Ceratodus and Extaeretodon? I'm gonna hope that's how you pronounce it. I actually don't know. Anyway, this is a bit of a different build, and this is actually one of the builds I am really quite happy with. I went for kind of a classic zoo small animal enclosure where we have two kind of low walls basically with small animals behind them. I don't necessarily know why this is what I went with, and I think I definitely could have maybe made them a bit easier to view. I kind of basically just was like, oh, prairie dog and like wombat or armadillo exhibits kind of look like this, and these animals are ranging anywhere from the size of a wombat to probably about the size of an armadillo. So yeah, that should probably work quite well. So the first one we're doing here is the is it Ceratodus? Is this the one I'm thinking of? I think it's Ceratodus that I'm thinking of. Or is it the oh no, it's the Hyperodapedon. Hyperodapedon. That's what I'm thinking of. I think Ceratodus is a fish. So yeah, I guess if you've already left a comment correcting me, I've corrected myself. Anyway, the cool thing with the Hyperodapedon exhibit is I actually built like a little burrow for them with an actual connecting bit, and it leads into a small viewing area. I think it could have turned out a little bit better, but it's also one of the difficulties of trying to build zoos in Minecraft. There are just limitations that you have to deal with, and sometimes things just don't quite look as good in this game as they would in, say, a dedicated zoo builder, like Planet Zoo, or Prehistoric Kingdom. But anyway, you can kind of see the basics of it there. There's not a lot going on in the burrow, just like a couple of enrichment items, some heat lamps, a heat rock, and I think a bit of food and water. But yeah, I don't know, I thought it was a cool idea, and I think it's the only animal I think I'm really gonna do something like that for with this zoo. I don't know, I feel like any other animal that might have been a burrower, I'm just gonna, if they have a burrow, it's not gonna be a viewing one, because I don't know, I think it's just the fact that it has to be so out of scale kind of bothers me. Because, you can't have it in scale, obviously. If you did, it would be way too small and way too hard to view. So, yeah, anyway. That side turns out okay. Made use of a bunch of like pre-made rock blocks and some hollow logs from ZAWA. I don't actually know what the rock pieces are from. I'm sure someone does in the comments. Or maybe I'll put it up on the screen if I remember. Probably won't though, knowing me and the fact I'm recording this probably a day or two before I'm actually going to edit the video together. Anyway, the Extaeretodon? Okay, the one that looks kind of like a dog. That's what I'm going to refer to this one as. Has a much cooler looking exhibit overall, I think, although maybe I should have thrown a few more in here. I mean, I guess I could for the final cinematic shots if I want to redo some of those. But I think this one looks better just because they're bigger animals and I definitely gave them a bit more space. And since there was more space, I also had a bit more freedom with how I could do the terrain, what plants I could throw in, all that kind of stuff. Because the hyper guys, the Hyperodapedons. Okay, the small ones. The small ones are way too small, and if you put like a bunch of plants in there, they will literally disappear and you will never see them again. So, it's kind of one of the difficulties of building what would really be an exhibit, like a mini exhibit animal, a full-scale exhibit. Whereas with these guys, I think it's turned out pretty well. They have a much larger shelter, obviously. I think something I'm definitely gonna do. I'm kind of in the process of doing this right now, because as I'm recording this, yeah, like I've said, the Triassic area is all done. We're working on the Jurassic, and I've gone back and, well, obviously you'll notice, especially in this cinematic, that these builds look a lot more complete by the time I get the final shots, because usually I've gone back and added in more scenery, all sorts of stuff like that. But I think I haven't really gone in and done much with the shelters in any of the builds, like adding in you know, extra decorations in there and whatnot. But maybe I'll do that with this one. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I spent a lot of time on this little central building cluster, and I think it turned out all right. I like the stone texture for the building itself. That being said, it may not have been the best choice to use the I think it's the Mayan stone I've used there, since that is a block I've also used in several rock walls throughout the park so far, which does kind of give it an odd look, since, you know, the rock walls are also part of the concrete buildings, but we've done that before in previous zoos, and it turns out pretty well there and here, I'd say. Also, we're making a ton of use of that dark stone brick colored thing we're using for the walls. I think that's Mayan brick from, I think the Peru Mod is what I've gotten that from. But I am using that, I've used that pretty extensively throughout the Triassic area, and you'll have to get used to it, because you will be seeing a lot of it, especially in, I think, the next episode. I definitely use a lot of it in that, and one of the other episodes. I think it's the last one for the Triassic, I use a lot of it as well. But I think it's a great looking block. It definitely fits the theme I'm going for with the Triassic area. It definitely fits the feel of it all, which, you know, sometimes that's all you need. So maybe you use it a bit like a certain texture or block, or I guess in a different game, like a certain piece too much. But if it really fits the theme and kind of sells the look of the area you're building, I think it definitely works. Anyway, like I said, literally most of this speed build is just this center section. Mostly because I was trying to find a way to make all the buildings kind of stand out from each other and not just blend in and look like a single building. You know, I wanted to give each section a bit of identity, so that way when you looked at it from a distance, it wasn't just, oh, look, it's this one building that looks really, really weird. It looks, you know, like, well, I guess if we were to, you know, create some story for this, that probably all these buildings were added on at different times. Probably the concrete shelter was the first building, and that little, like, slanted roof was probably an original part of that, or, like, just a covered entrance they added on later. And then that tower section in the middle, I guess middle? I don't know, really. That tower section was probably a secondary addition, and then I guess probably the burrow is the newest addition to it, but I don't know. I'm not really worried about making a story for these builds. Well, not all the time. I think the next episode I did kind of start thinking, like, oh, this kind of makes sense if you kind of make a bit of a story for it, but we'll wait, that'll be next episode. Anyway, yeah, I don't think I really have too much else to say. I think this was a pretty simple build. It was kind of fun. We're not going to do too many of these episodes overall where it's, you know, less of building an exhibit and or like where we just do these like really small exhibits where there's not a lot going on necessarily. I think there's this one, there's another one for the Triassic, and then I think another episode overall where that's planned. But yeah, anyway, that's that. I'll let the rest of the time-lapse play out, and then I'll give you guys some cool end cinematics to show you how the builds look overall.